Here's an interesting topic that I don't think I've ever seen addressed. We're going to look at something that happens often in all Latin styles, Cuban, Brazilian, and for that matter, any style that has a strong African component in its development. I'm talking about pulling groups of sixteenths toward triplets, or triplets toward sixteenths. This occurs because of the strong presence of African traditions in the music all over Latin America and the Caribbean. In various types of African drumming, it's possible to hear metric subdivisions of 3 and 2 occurring simultaneously. We almost never do this in Western music, but in Africa, it's not just common, it's the norm. Pulling sixteenths to triplets and vice versa also is a big part of it and a normal outgrowth of simultaneous duple and triple meters. Here's what I'm talking about. Let's take some straight sixteenths. Now, let's pull them toward triplets. Note that I put a little stress on the first and last notes of each group, which is actually a pretty common practice. So let's take some straight triplets. And now let's pull them towards 16th notes. So let's examine a very practical way to go about learning to do this. It's crucial that you can execute this pulling consistently, making each group sound just like the others. Otherwise, they'll just sound sloppy. When pulling sixteenths toward triplets, try this. Start out with straight triplets using the following sticking. So that's right, right, left, right, right, left. Now, double the first note. And we're going to just use hand-to-hand sticking on that. That's important. We're not going to make a diddle out of it. Now, let's just flatten out that whole thing a little. And there we've got it. Notice that it's no longer strictly a triplet-based rhythm. So we'll do them both again. Here's the modified triplets. The first note is doubled. And now we'll pull it towards 16th. Looks easy, right? Try it. Well, it's definitely a little harder than it sounds because in Western music we're not used to this. We're good with duple, we're good with triple, but when it's something in between, it's hard at first to achieve that balance and consistency, but stay with it. You'll get it and your playing will benefit greatly. Now, let's look at pulling triplets towards sixteenths. So we'll do it hand to hand first. Here's what we're going for. Now, let's see how to get there. Here are straight triplets. And now, here's another 3-note figure, but it's 16th, 8th, 16th. 16th, 8th, 16th. Now again, we want to flatten that out a little bit. So the first 2 notes aren't quite as close to each other, and the space in the middle is a little shorter. So here's what that sounds like. These are the 2 most common patterns, but there are others as well. So let's see, let's look at just pulling straight eighths to triplets, giving it a little bit of a swing feel. So here's straight eighths. And now here's what we'd consider like a shuffle feel. Now here it is pulled, and so that's like right in between straight eighths and a shuffle. So this is extremely effective and important when playing reggae or a New Orleans second line feel. So, here's an example of those. All right, so notice that the hi-hat feel was not straight, but it wasn't like a full-on shuffle either. So, here's like a New Orleans second line feel. So again, not right in between. We don't always want that happening, but when it's appropriate, it adds a whole other dimension to your playing. Again, the trick is playing them with consistency, playing them with the same feel. Otherwise, it just sounds sloppy. Playing along with recordings is helpful. Sex Machine by James Brown is a good example of a funk song that has that feel. Here are a couple of other examples. First, a type of Brazilian samba, kind of a street samba. This one is tricky because I pull the left hand part on the snare, but the hi-hat part remains straight. Let's try a brush samba. I don't have out my brush. Ah, here they are. Okay, so here's a brush samba. So that's very effective for that too. Pulling sixteenths toward triplets and triplets toward sixteenths is actually required when soloing in an Afro-Cuban style. That's what gives their solos, whether it's on congas, bongo, or timbales, their flavor. So let's see what that sounds like. The important thing when trying to learn this is patience. It's a whole different approach to rhythmic subdivision, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's also helpful, as I said, to play along with music that utilizes this. The goal is consistency. If you're not consistent in the way you're playing those figures, it's just going to sound sloppy. But the reward is that you will have taken your playing to another level with this. So that's it for this video. As always, thanks to my friends at Paiste Cymbals for their support over the years, and the Conservatory of Music and Dance at the University of Kansas City, where I teach. And most of all, thanks for watching.